The internet is full of fictional scary stories and movies alike, but what I find more terrifying than these are the true scary stories that happen to real people like you and me every day. Here are 3 terrifying true stories. The case of Blanche Monnier is perhaps one of the most disturbing that I have ever come across, and it is certainly not for the faint of heart. In 1876, Blanche was a young, beautiful socialite living in Poitiers, France. And just 25 years old, Blanche was finding her way in the world and was enjoying all of the finer things that she had at her disposal. For Blanche, the exceptions were simple yet high. Marry a rich, aristocratic man and carry the family name in good favor. Blanche's mother, Madame Louise, was thrilled when her daughter brought home a suitor. Her family were also thrilled, thinking of the good days ahead of them in the family that Blanche and her new husband would create. But there was one problem. The man that Blanche had fallen in love with was not a high society fellow like them, and her family knew that this would cast a bad light on their family. Blanche and her boyfriend refused to separate and wanted nothing more than to get married. But before that marriage could ever happen, Blanche mysteriously disappeared. Life carried on for the Monniers, with Madame Louise maintaining the image of a rich yet charitable woman who wanted to do everything she could to help those less fortunate. Little did her high society peers know that she was keeping a dark secret that would be exposed in the most horrific way. In 1901, the Attorney General of Paris was sorting through his daily post when he came across a bizarre letter. The Attorney General no doubt received countless letters every day, some in regards to legal affairs and others littered with ramblings. But this letter caught his eye. As he skimmed down the page, in the letter, an unnamed source told the attorney that the Monnier family was hiding a dark secret at their estate, and that they should be investigated immediately. Something in the letter struck the attorney, and he ordered police officers to attend the Monnier estate immediately. Madame Louise Monnier was no doubt angered by the unannounced police search, and those who lived and worked in the Monnier estate claimed that she was a wicked and cruel woman that everyone was afraid of. The police carefully searched the house, finding nothing. That was until they made their way upstairs, following a distinct stench. The stench was unbearable, and as they walked down the corridor, they found a padlocked room. This alarmed the police, who smashed through the door, unprepared for who and what lay on the other side. As their eyes adjusted to the pitch-black room, they could just about make out something on the bed. The curtains were thrown open, and that is when they discovered a severely emaciated body of Blanche Monnier, the missing socialite. Blanche remained chained to the bed with fecal matter, food scraps, and other bits of rubbish strewn around her. The smell and the sight made officers sick to their stomachs. They slowly began to process what they had discovered, and the horrors of the day surely never left their memory. Blanche had been kept, isolated, and locked away for 25 years without adequate food, water, or sunlight. In fact, when the officers opened the curtains during the search, that was the first time that Blanche had seen the sunlight in 25 years. She weighed just 55 pounds and was not in a good mental state, to say the least. Blanche had been locked away, all because she wanted to marry a poor lawyer, and not a rich aristocratic man like her mother had wanted. Madame Louise told Blanche that when she had changed her mind, she would be freed. But Blanche had remained steadfast in her dedication to her boyfriend. Blanche was finally rescued from her room of horrors and was taken to a hospital for an assessment and treatment. Unfortunately, the event left Blanche with a lasting damage, both physically and psychologically, and she lived in a sanitarium until she passed away. As for her mother, Madame Louise, she died soon after Blanche was discovered, due to the stress of her dark secret finally being exposed. The Room of Horrors, where Blanche had been kept for 25 years, is an example of just how cruel and deplorable humans can be. This is the last photo ever taken of 39-year-old Robert Overhacker. He leaves behind a daredevil legacy, along with a tragic tale. He will forever be remembered for his stunt over Niagara Falls, and unfortunately, not for his accomplishments in life or his character. On October 1st, 1995, Robert Overhacker made his way from his home in Camarillo, California, to the Niagara River near the Canadian Niagara Power Plant. Robert wanted to perform a death-defying stunt and to put his name in the history books. He jumped on his jet ski and then hit the waters, headed for the edge of the falls. Robert had planned to jet ski to the edge before jumping off the jet ski and using a rocket-propelled parachute to help him land safely in the waters below. As Robert picked up speed and propelled to the edge of the falls, he activated his parachute. But then, the unthinkable happened. Unfortunately, the parachute didn't work. Some sources say it failed. Some say it fell off or away from him, and he was thrown into the waters below. This entire event was caught on film, and Robert's stepbrother and his friend watched on in horror as he plummeted over the edge of the falls with no working parachute. It appears that Robert had not properly checked his equipment before the stunt, and there's a chance that if he did, he may have spotted the defective equipment. Shortly after Robert plummeted over the side of the falls, emergency services were called to the scene to retrieve him. Info Niagara notes, "At first, it seemed that he may have survived the plunge, but the rapids have a strange way of flailing corpses' arms around, often giving them the appearance of a person swimming." Robert was taken to the Niagara General Hospital and was declared deceased. He became the 15th person to intentionally go over Niagara Falls since 1901. "14-year-old Keith Sappsford was described as a boy with itchy feet by his father, a boy who simply wanted to see the world and learn how everything works. Unfortunately, an accident in 1970 would take that bright and promising future away from him. Keith's father, Charles, had grown tired of his son's defiance and perceived troubled nature, so he decided that it would be best to send him to the Roman Catholic Boys' Town School in South Sydney, Australia. Whilst today, Keith would have been perceived as a lively and bright young man who had a willingness to travel the world, in the 1970s, his behavior was seen as somewhat abnormal and disruptive. Keith quickly discovered that he hated the Boys' Town School and desperately wanted to get out. All he wanted to do was see the world, and he devised a plan to do so. Weeks after arriving, Keith snuck out of the school and headed to the Sydney airport. With no ticket, no money, and no baggage, Keith knew that there was only one way he was getting out of there: by being a stowaway. He crept onto the runway, looking for any plane that was preparing to take off, and thankfully, he was in luck. A plane headed to Japan was getting ready for the journey ahead, and whilst the staff were preoccupied with refueling and safety checks, Keith ran and tucked himself into the plane's wheel well, a decision that would cost him his life. According to reports, Keith had gotten the idea from a news story he had heard weeks earlier about another boy who had snuck onto an airplane. Keith was truly desperate to escape the school and was willing to risk everything. Unfortunately, his plan was extremely short-sighted, and within a few hours, he would be dead. The plane prepared for takeoff, and the ascension into the sky went off without a hitch. That was until the wheel compartment opened to allow the wheels to retract from the duration of the flight. Keith had possibly not taken this into consideration when choosing his stowaway place, and as the compartment opened, he was thrown out, flying through the air before hitting the tarmac below him. Disturbingly, his fall was caught on camera by a photographer, John Gilpin, who was at the airport wanting to get a few cool pictures to show off to his friends. Onlookers watched as Keith plummeted to the ground, hitting the hot tarmac of the runway. Keith did not survive the fall, and emergency services rushed to his aid. His family were informed of the incident and gathered to receive their son. This event alone changed the way that airports secured runways and brought to light the dangers of trying to stow away under a plane. Experts believe that if Keith hadn't fallen, he likely wouldn't have survived the journey due to the cold conditions and lack of oxygen. Keith Sappsford's last moments have been immortalized in film forever and provides us with a reminder of how life can change within a matter of seconds. That is it for this one. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. This will help my channel grow. If you have a future story suggestion or would like to contact me directly, you can do so by emailing me at creepyunsolvedmedia@gmail.com. Looking for more content? Be sure to visit creepyunsolved.com, where you'll find podcast episodes, YouTube videos, and the Creepy Unsolved blog. Until next time, this is Dylan signing off. I look forward to your comments below.